Welcome. I am your host, Cindy Watson, and today I'm really excited to introduce you to Justin Bozzo. Welcome, Justin. It is great to have you here.
Hi, Cindy. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, today we're going to talk about how to love practicing the law, even when others don't, and even when things don't go the way you planned, which, as we all know, happens often. So, for those of you who don't know Justin, his experience includes mobilizing diverse groups of musicians and law students. So, he's got a wide range of interests and managing a high volume of legal cases and effectively advising professionals on the inner workings of government. So, kind of really unique niche. Writing's the bedrock of his success in art, law, and academia. But I love that it's his open mind and a willingness to learn, that growth mindset that really sets him apart from his peers. And really interested here, I know he's interested in conflict resolution, so we're definitely going to dig into that as well. So, Justin, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what made you want to pursue a career as an attorney.
Oh gosh, I love that question. You know, I'm, I've been a lawyer for about a year and a half now, so I'm fairly green.
Yeah,
But
nice.
what motivated me to become a lawyer? I would say my experience being in a band for many years. So before law school, I was um, an artist for about 10 years in a touring band. We toured across Canada, the US, and it was a great experience. Loved the experience, but there were some things that I thought were unfair that happened to me personally and also to my bandmates. Just injustice, and I kind of felt that sting of injustice. I went back to school after a bit of a falling out with one of the members,
Yeah.
but I continued playing with three of the guys, releasing original music, and then I think realizing in undergrad that what I experienced was really minuscule, trivial in the grand scheme of things compared to what other people experience,
Uh,
and at that point I thought, maybe I'll pursue a career in law, and I love philosophy. I was in the philosophy
yeah.
program, and
Okay.
yeah, so it kind of went for me. It felt like the next logical step.
Okay. Well, I love that. It's so interesting because that is would not be a lot going from sort of music industry to law isn't the normal process. Although there are a lot of lawyers who are definitely frustrated musicians for sure. So you actually live the dream. What kind of music? What kind of band? Tell us a bit about that.
Rock and roll. It was
Oh,
rock and roll.
good for you.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of rock and roll. Beatles, Stones, Bob
Yeah.
Dylan's, the band, a Canadian band called the Band.
Yeah.
Although one of the members was American, but one of the guys in that band, him and I were releasing an album soon, a full
Yeah.
length, our first full length album. So I've continued to play music, which I'm very grateful for. He's
Oh,
a big help. So I'm very
yeah.
thankful to him and to my partner,
Yeah.
my romantic partner, that is, for allowing me to pursue
Yeah.
both, music career and, well, not a music career, more of a hobby, but
Yeah.
a legal career and my passion for music as well.
Nice mix, because I think we become better lawyers when we keep tapping into our creativity. So I think it's a beautiful way for you to be able to keep both alive. And
I'd
you
agree.
are definitely speaking my language when you talk about injustice. As you may know, I practice social justice law. So do you mind sharing, or if it's personal, you don't have to, but would love what were some of the injustices that sort of prompted you to think, I want to be able to make a change?
Yeah, you know what? I'm happy to share it. It's a long story, but I would say not being in control of our finances, managers, a managerial team that I don't think had our best interests at heart, issues with one of the members, one of the singers. I think his contribution to the band was lyrics, and I feel that me and another songwriter who I'm continuing to play with, we felt that, or I guess we grew as songwriters. We began writing lyrics as well, and I think one of the members saw that as a threat. The the original lyricist saw that as a threat, not necessarily as something that we can all benefit from. And I think it really felt like from there things went south really quick. But yeah, we soldiered on, and hey, no regrets. I'm happy with the way things turned out, and yeah, we have another album coming out soon.
Well, and there's no, I often say, have celebrations where we celebrate. There's no such thing as failure unless you don't learn lessons from it. And it sounds like you did, and you grew and you moved forward.
Totally.
And this control issue is a big one. I'm a big Bruce Springsteen fan. I know we
Wow.
sort of lost his music for a long period of time because he was in a legal conflict with his manager at the time, and
Wow.
he had complete control over his music. And he actually he refused to play for the guy until he released him. So it was at the height of his career as well as a young guy. So that took some guts.
I
So
love the
I
boss. I don't know too much about that side of things, but I love the boss. That's amazing that you're a fan as well.
Oh yeah, huge fan. I've seen most of his concerts all over. So,
No
I'd
way.
love to hear, how do you define success? Because especially you've got this interesting background. So, what does success look like for you? And what's one thing that you would say you attribute your success to, Justin? Because you're obviously doing well. I mean, that's a tough industry. You made
Thank
it
you.
in in the music industry, and then transitioned to law, which also isn't the
Yeah,
easiest game. So,
that's right. That's right. You know what? It's hard to say. What is success to me? Well, since we're talking about music, I love that Bob Dylan quote. He says, "A man is a success if he gets up in the morning and gets to bed at night, and in between he does what he wants to do." So I think freedom is a big part of it.
oh,
Um, Finding meaning in what you do. You know what, Cindy? I've never been the type of person who values financial rewards over
yeah,
autonomy or giving back to others, serving others.
yeah,
I've never been that type of person. Not to put down others who are money driven, but that's not me. So I think being in law, it allows me to give back, but I think it's intellectually stimulating. It's challenging as well. Also, being a solo attorney, it definitely is. I wouldn't be telling the truth if I were to say, oh, it's a breeze and it's easy
yeah,
being on your own. It definitely is difficult, but no, every day I keep busy. I like being busy. I like dealing with clients. I like putting out fires. It
yeah.
can be a headache at times, but I love it all. Truly, I find meaning in what I do, and yeah, I would say I'm an integral part of society, just like you and many other lawyers
Yeah.
in Canada and in the world.
Yeah, and freedom and meaning. I mean, yeah, that's a pretty awesome answer, frankly. Especially this podcast, as you know, is called "Practicing with Purpose" for lawyers only. So, I think that's one of the keys to being able to practice on purpose is loving what you do, doing what you love, and being able to find the meaning in it and stay attached to the meaning in it that gives you that purpose to show up and feel like you're making a difference. I think that's beautiful. Now, you
Truly.
mentioned some of the troubles with being a solo lawyer. So tell us a bit, because I know you didn't start as a solo lawyer, I don't think, right? So tell me, like, how did you come to the decision to have your own practice?
To be honest, Cindy, it was sort of thrust on me. So I did. When I became a lawyer, I opened up my own practice about a month after getting called to the bar. But my main goal, or my original goal, was to get hired on as an associate with the firm that I was at. So I was articling at a firm full service firm in London,
Yeah.
and that was the goal. But about 3 months left of my articling term, I had about 3 months left, and then COVID hit, and then a week into the lockdown, actually, my partner and I, we found out that we were expecting a baby.
Oh,
Uh,
congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, he's a joy. He truly is a joy. Um, but there's a bit of a desperation mode at that point. I was thinking, gosh, I didn't know if I was going to be hired back.
Yeah.
A baby on the way. What's the future hold? And I was told that the firm wouldn't be hiring me back, and it was really deflating, distressing. I didn't know what to think. I reached out to other firms and asked if they were hiring, and everybody at the time was so uncertain as to
Yeah.
what was going to happen with COVID that nobody was hiring at the time. But I found a job. I did find a job at an e-discovery firm, the Toronto chapter of this New York-based
Hmm.
e-discovery practice, which was pretty cool. Um, and they were saying, you know what, we're very busy. You can't work another job. You got to stick with us. And I said, okay, that's great. Good to hear. But I never heard back from them in a year,
Wow.
literally a year. And it wasn't their fault. It's just the lady who had hired me stopped working there, and no one really gave me a date for training,
Yeah.
anything like that. So kind of on a whim, I decided, you know what? I'm gonna open up Bozzo Law, my own firm. I literally randomly I came up with that name, and it's just, very simple name. It's not
Yeah.
overly or anything. Um, Created a logo, and I'm like, you know what? I'll set up my own
Yeah.
practice. Yeah.
Gutsy. I love it. And what do you see as the difference? Like, what was your experience in sort of that larger firm environment? Do you find that people there were practicing with purpose and really embracing the meaning of the
Hmm.
practice?
You know what? To be honest, I think very few. I think very few were. There were some shining stars at the firm that I was at, definitely, and I'm grateful for my time there. But I think maybe, and it's not particular to that firm. I think generally in that environment, corporate environment, um, with you know, titles that people are trying to aspire toward, partner,
Yeah.
senior associate, managing partner, whatever it
Yeah.
is. I think it leads to a type of culture, a dynamic in the firm that, you know, although I did want to be a part of it, it was a goal of mine to get hired on. Now that I opened up my own firm and I see what life is like, and I've realized that, I don't need to rely on a partner to bring in business. I can rely on myself and
Yeah.
contacts, friends of friends, and also a notary business that I operate out of my house. People come to the door and I give them a card, and
Yeah.
a lot of my clients have come from that. Um, I realized, what, I don't know if that culture is a right fit for me. So to
Yeah.
tell you the truth, I haven't applied to any other jobs, and people have asked, hey, when do you plan on going to another firm? And I said, that's not a goal of mine at all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
honestly, I've opened up my own firm and I haven't looked back.
That's
I'm not
fantastic.
saying I'm not saying in the future I might not join, a
Sure.
firm, or right now I would love to join forces with another solo attorney, start a
Yeah.
partnership or something like that.
Yeah.
But so far things are going okay, just with me.
Yeah.
Challenging, but looking up. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like living on purpose, if you will, and practicing on purpose is important to you. So, how do you maintain that purpose? What are some tips that you would give for others? Because it sounds like you do definitely follow your heart. And when
Hmm.
things don't go your way, you have that show that resilience. You get up, you dust yourself off, and then you find a new angle. So,
You
how
know
how do you
what?
maintain that passion and purpose?
Cindy, actually, I love the word. I love that you use the word resilience because the bandmate that I mentioned earlier in the podcast, my good friend Sean Royal, actually, him and I are releasing an album called Resilience. It's called Resilience Volumes 1 through 3.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah, very, very, very fitting, I
That
think.
is nice.
But just on that point, I think just having interests outside of law, and it could be anything. It could be painting, drawing, artistic interests, songwriting. Gosh, I don't know what other people do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Writing, stuff like that. Sailing, traveling, cooking.
Yeah.
Um, just having interest outside of law. I think you know, being able to having a creative outlet to express myself in. I think it's been a boon to my
Yeah.
practice. I think, and I think pursuing your interests on evenings and weekends, by all means, work hard at your day job, work hard at being a lawyer. But I would really encourage people to spend time with their family, on downtime.
Yeah.
Pursue another passion, pursue another outlet if they
Yeah.
could.
Yeah. I think so many lawyers lose themselves in the practice as they're going for that, whether it's that partner, but and even then, frankly, I shouldn't say as they're going for it. I mean, it almost gets worse, right? This
Mm,
constant, unattainable, like you got to keep get on that hamster wheel. So I think really
true.
having those priorities clear, as you say, spend time with your family, spend time with your friends, do things you love. And one of the other words that I want to key in on is perspective, because you were talking earlier about when you got into law school and when you're studying, you realize that some of the problems that you'd had, suddenly you're like, wow, these are small compared to a lot of the biggers. I'd love your insights on perspective shifts, whether it's from going from the music industry to the legal industry, recognizing that your problems aren't as big. Maybe COVID, everybody coming from a place of fear, and then how that is. What are your thoughts on what role perspective plays in being able to stay passionate?
Interesting. Perspective. It's hard to say. I think as long as you keep that growth mindset, as long as you are passionate about learning, you want to grow. Um, I think perspectives change. I think we evolve as people. Our
Yeah.
interests change. Our lives change. Financially speaking, through family growth and family, change of friends, perspectives change. I don't know. You know what? I have changed most definitely from my undergrad days. Prior to that, even law school, practicing law, I've changed. But I got to be honest. I think I've been pretty true to myself the entire time. I haven't changed too much. I've evolved naturally. I think, but I think my perspectives on life, on things, I've maintained a certain level of consistency. I think at least,
Yeah.
but definitely, I think you'd be foolish to say the same. I think it's important to adapt to your circumstances, to the different environments that you're in. I've done that most definitely, but my perspective on life, success, I think it's been fairly consistent.
I like this idea about evolving, and I think it's really apt for lawyers. If you want to maintain that passion and purpose, you can't stay stuck in the old ways of looking at things and doing things. I think that's a beautiful concept, that idea about evolving. And for me, with that perspective piece, like if you think of the problems that we were dealing with sort of pre-COVID, if you will, right? The things that seemed so important at the time, suddenly 2 weeks later, when things really hit the fan, that there was that dramatic perspective shift, if you will, where it was like, oh my gosh, those problems seem so insignificant right now. And it
Yeah.
was, I think it shaked a lot of people to their core to reprioritize, as you say, what are the things that are important? So,
Mm.
so many people were driven by fear. I'd love if you're comfortable sharing, Justin. Tell us what are some of your biggest fears and how do you address them when you find that you're coming from a place of fear?
Huh. Great questions, by the way. Wow. Um, you know what? I definitely, I think this feeling of being inadequate or not belonging, I think it's rife in the legal profession. I think
Yes.
the terminology that I've seen is imposter syndrome.
Yes.
I think, it's very common. I know I've suffered that, feeling in law school, do I belong here? Will I succeed as a lawyer? Um, when things aren't looking too good on a case, I think, oh gosh, was it foolish of me to take this case on? Am I doing things properly? I doubt myself a lot, but I don't think things are as bad as they seem when they are bad, and I don't think things are as good as they might seem when they're going well.
Hmm.
So I think, I guess that's my perspective on that. So
Yeah.
how I deal with fear, just keep on keeping on, move on. Tomorrow's a new day.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for my partner because she's been very supportive of me. My romantic partner, that is,
Yeah.
very supportive of me. I have a boy, a loving boy.
Yeah.
That drives me as well. So when things aren't looking too good, or I had a bad day at work, or it could be with family, with anything. I find it's pretty easy for me to realize that the next day is a new start. I don't have to dwell on the past.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. I love that. And yeah, and I love your honesty as well, Justin, I gotta say, and your level of self-awareness about it, because I think so many lawyers suffer from imposter syndrome or that lack of confidence or feeling not enough or do I belong. But we're so conditioned that we have to always show up from a place of confidence that I think
Mm.
most lawyers end up repressing that. I love your honesty about it. You're like, okay, this is here. How do I deal with this? Keep going up, get up, go on, gain that resilience. Your album's going to be a huge hit. I mean, you got lots of material to work on there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Now, I know that you draw on conflict resolution strategies in your practice. So I'd love if you could speak. I don't know if you know, but I am on a mission to help people reframe negotiation, how we look at it, how we do it. I created a program called The Art of Feminine Negotiation, which is not gender based, but more about getting away from that competitive model and looking at a more
Mm.
collaborative approach. So I'd love, given your conflict resolution interest, if you could speak to the art of negotiation or conflict resolution and how it helps both as an attorney and in life.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I When clients reach out to me, or potential clients reach out to me, I very rarely will I say to them, let's pursue a court proceeding. I always suggest mediation at first. I think, hey, or I say, a lot of these issues stem from a miscommunication. I have found in my brief career, I found that it's just one side, they're thinking something that the other side isn't thinking or never thought about. Um, Very rarely do people deliberately try to hurt
Yeah.
others. I think, or at least, you know, that's the experience that I've had. Um, I admire that. I like that thought. Negotiating with a feminine sort of perspective. Um, we don't always have to be these macho people
Yeah.
and threatening litigation and threatening this and that. Listening, I think, is big.
Yeah.
I think listening to what the other side has to say. Um, a lot of times, the other party isn't willing to listen. We might offer mediation, or we might say, what's the issue here? Are we able to talk this through? Um, and sometimes at least, it's not my client or my clients who are being stubborn or inflexible. It often is the other side, and we're left with no choice but to pursue litigation. But I'll tender an offer to settle early in the process, because there are cost consequences for not taking or not accepting a reasonable offer to settle. So I'm always on the lookout for potential forms of resolution. And I encourage my clients too. Don't necessarily think that this person is an evil person, whether it's a former spouse, um, former business partner, an insurance company. They're looking out for their own interests, definitely. Um, and there are reasons for why people act the way they do. There are reasons for
Yeah.
this. It could be the lawyer is encouraging a certain form of behavior. Maybe they I don't think lawyers are like this typically, but I'm sure there are some who try to, they have an incentive to prolong a dispute,
Yeah.
to keep it as a protracted dispute. Um, so I say don't necessarily cast blame on the opposing side. They might be led in a direction that they don't want to be led into. A lot of reasons for behavior. And one thing that I found interesting too when I was taking this mediation course, which I put toward my qualified mediator designation, my QMAD designation with the ADR Institutes, was oftentimes people will accuse the other side of being a certain way, being evil or
Yeah.
whatever it is, being a sociopath or a jealous person. But I've been told, and thinking this through, I think there's some truth to it. I think when someone does that, they're often insecure because they might feel that they
Yeah.
have those traits. They might be reflecting what they themselves feel, what they feel themselves to be.
Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting perspective, and I've mentioned that to a few clients, not to all my clients, but to a few clients, just to see conflict from a different perspective, from a different lens.
I think that's a gorgeous perspective and one that is we could use a lot more of that perspective in law, frankly, where sometimes
Hmm.
lawyer and over the years I've seen great deals get scuttled because the lawyers are so tunnel vision about that competitive approach and don't see the opportunity that's lying right there on the table. And what you've described, Justin, actually so beautifully aligns with what I call the art of feminine negotiation, because it's
Hmm.
all about bringing, building rapport. And what you've described, I think, beautifully is bringing empathy to the table, like really seek to understand the other side. What's their driving deep why? What are their needs, and how can we find a way to meet them? Because that's where the gold lies in terms of getting those better outcomes for everybody rather than that single-minded focus on litigation. And listening, such an important skill. So again, kudos to you so early in your career to really recognize the value of that new approach. And I hope you go out there
Oh,
and
thank
teach
you so
that to
much.
the world.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, what advice would you give to another lawyer who is losing faith in the profession?
Oh goodness. What I so far in my career, I love what I do, so I can't even imagine what someone might feel when they're looking to turn away or look elsewhere for happiness. Um, if I were to come across a lawyer who felt that way, maybe I would just remind them. I think this way of the law, of being a lawyer, what a privilege it is to practice law. I don't see it as, it is a well-respected profession, and I like that. I like that about it. I'll be honest. Um, but I think there are so few professions out there that offer the people in that profession so much room to grow, so much room to
Mhm.
learn, to give back, um, to challenge yourself. It's very and even the skills that you develop as a lawyer, I think they're transferable to so many fields.
Yeah,
I don't know too many professions that are like that.
yeah.
Um, I wouldn't want them to do something or continue doing something that they don't like to do, but maybe I would encourage them to reframe their outlook. Um, Stick it out. I would hate to like I said, I would hate to encourage someone to stick with something that they hate, but I think I would express how I go about practicing law, my approach, and what I enjoy about it, and maybe hope to inspire them as well. I think I would take that approach.
Nice. And I love the word reframe. I think it's such an important word, often undervalued and underused because
Hmm.
I'm sensing a theme of perspective here because so much of it is our perspective, right? We get caught up in that to-do grind. And sometimes all it takes is that reminder of, hey, we came to the practice of law to make a difference in the world. And find that way, find that thing that you're passionate about that can allow you to make a difference again in a way as you've done that's authentic, right? If this isn't fitting and I'm that, round peg in a square hole, then
Mm.
find a way that works for me. I think that's great advice. And speaking of advice, what is something that you know now that you wish you knew when you first started? So, whether on your journey
Mm.
in life or in the practice of law.
Oh gosh. Um, for law, I would say, don't be afraid to forge your own path. Don't
Mm,
be. I think in law school, um, I went to Queens and I loved our career counselors. That said, I think it wasn't stemming from them, but just generally, I think there was a lot of encouraging students to pursue that one track path. Go to OCIs, go to those on-campus interviews, get a job at a big Bay Street firm. That'll be a good jumping off point for whatever else you want to do in life,
yeah.
or even in law. But there are so many different ways to practice laws. There's so many ways to use your education for a good use. I think don't get so stuck in that mindset. Don't get on that hamster wheel like everybody else. It seems to me that everybody else is or was on that hamster wheel. I would say that and if you don't get that OCI, if you don't get that interview, if you don't get that job,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Life goes on. Keep keep trucking, keep moving ahead, and things will improve. I think, and I think the same goes for life too. Whatever adversity you might face, um, take that negative or that adversity and turn it into a positive. Use that
Mm,
challenge. Prove to yourself that you still got it. You can still do it.
yeah.
At least that's the approach that I've taken with music as well. The adversity that we faced as musicians, as artists, and even most recently, our latest project, we lost a member. Most recently, a good friend of ours, but we didn't dwell on that. We continued, and things are going well. Things are going well.
Yeah. See, there's that beautiful reframe and perspective taking again that can help
Hmm.
with that sort of positive attitude. I think that's just what a great way. And it's funny, just I got to say, you're so understated in your approach. But for all our listeners out there as well, this is one of those episodes you're going to want to go back and rewind because there are some real gold nuggets here. And I know you write. I hope you write some about life lessons as well, because you do have a really
Ah,
gorgeous perspective about life and
oh,
lots
thank you
of
so much.
value that you just kind of slide in there so seamlessly. I hope people are really catching some of the gold here.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, is there anything else that you'd like to expand on in terms of practicing with purpose or being able to rekindle and find your passion in the practice of law?
Um, you know what? Nothing comes to mind. I would say, be bold, be brave, forge your own path.
Hmm.
Um, don't be afraid about, or don't focus so much on what others think. Be yourself. I like the word you used earlier, Cindy. It was authentic. I I can't say I strive to be authentic. I just am. I try to be myself. That's it. And I would encourage others to do the same. You don't have to impress anybody. If one approach doesn't work for you, one way of conducting a cross, one way of mediating, one way of negotiating, that doesn't work for you, there are many other ways. Find your own voice. Write in your own voice. Be you, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm smiling for two reasons. One, you go, oh, I don't know, nothing really comes to mind. And then you proceed to give five gold nuggets. And also that word authentic, I want to really put a pin in that for our listeners as well, because, and I love that you tied it to the idea of negotiation, because I think in negotiation and in the practice of law, we often believe we need to show up a particular way and we try to take on somebody else's role. Oh, they're really successful. I'm going to take the, you wouldn't buy a suit that doesn't fit you or an outfit of clothing. So don't try and take on somebody else's style. Be authentic. You are going to be an infinitely better negotiator and you are going to be a much more persuasive and influential legal counsel when you show up with absolute authenticity. So I think that was great advice that you've given. So, since you have all of these powerful sort of mindset shifts, I'm going to close this off. I can't believe how quick this time has gone here. What is one of the greatest mindset shifts that you've had in your life, Justin? And it doesn't have to be about the practice of law, just generally. You know, how sometimes we have those moments where we see something differently and it changes everything.
Oh goodness. Um, hmm. Moments of my life. When my son was born, I think at that
Mm,
point I realized that, you know, there was someone who I can't help but put ahead of my own interests.
Yeah.
Um, Definitely when he was born. I think when COVID, going through COVID, living through that, led to a mindset shift, I would say. Um, Going to
And
undergrad, taking my philosophy courses. Sorry, Cindy, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, what are the shifts that you had? Like in those when your son was born, I love that you're saying,
Mhm.
putting his needs first, but for either or both of those, those were profound changing moments for you. What was the shift? What was the change in your thought that you had coming out of either of those
Mhm.
experiences?
Um, when my boy was born, I would say just I'm not number one anymore. It's not all about me. I care about my partner, but
Yeah.
um, when he was born, he turned one actually last week. When
That's
he
so
was
great.
born, yeah, it was a great birthday. It was a great weekend. But just focusing less on myself and focusing on him, um, on family generally. I would say,
Yeah.
um, you know, taking philosophy courses, going through undergrad at McMaster here in Hamilton. I'm working out of my home right now in Hamilton. I have an office in Toronto, but today I'm working from home. Um, just I think that was another big moment as well, realizing that others have dealt with much more severe injustices
Yeah.
than I have.
Yeah.
Maybe it led to a less selfish, a less of a me mindset. I
Hmm.
think both those experiences. I think my son's birth, going to undergrad, taking philosophy
Yeah.
courses, law school as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think that's great. I think that's a pretty profound answer, actually. And I can tell from the way you're saying it, you don't think it is. And I think it is really a profound answer for people to when we finally recognize that it's not all about us, and in the practice of law in particular, it's a beautiful way to show up in practice when you're really truly understanding the needs of your client, because sometimes what they need isn't what they think they want. So being able to really put their needs first and recognize that. And as you so beautifully said earlier, the needs of the other parties as well, being able to recognize what's really driving them. And even in our negotiations, it's again one of the things I teach in the art of feminine negotiation. As soon as you catch ego showing up and making it about you, it's time to
mhm,
stop, pause, and think, how can I show up differently to be more of, meeting the needs of the other party and in life generally, coming from a place of service. I think that serves us all well. For
Truly.
humanity. So great and kind of nice that we ended there, given that we started with you talking about that concept, that recognition that things I thought were horrible injustices
Mhm.
are nothing compared to other people. So enjoy that boy of yours, Justin, because
Thank you so much.
it goes fast. Let me tell you, it feels like yesterday. I started late and made up for lost time. We had 3 kids in 3 years, so
Oh
I've
my
got
goodness.
three early 20 somethings now, and
Wow.
wow, it's like in a blink of an eye. So enjoy that beautiful boy, and
Will
thanks so
do.
much for joining us today. I love this conversation, and love your approach
Pleasure, Cindy.
to
Thanks for having
life
me.
and
Thank you
law.
so much.
And for our listeners out there, make sure to go check out and about Justin. You want to check him out on his website at bozzolaw.com or check him out on LinkedIn as well, Justin Bozzo. So I am sure you've got loads of value from this episode. And again, this is one I'd go back and re-listen to this episode a few times and grab some of those nuggets, maybe put them on your phone even, because there was a lot of gold here about how to live a fuller life on purpose. So I encourage you to listen and re-listen. And for those of you, if you haven't already subscribed to Practicing with Purpose podcast for lawyers only, please make sure to do so and share this with anyone that you think could get some value from this message. And let's face it, we all want to practice with more purpose, bring more heart to our practice. And I've mentioned Art of Feminine Negotiation a few times here today. So check out my Art of Feminine Negotiation podcast as well, if that's something that caught your interest. And that is a wrap for this episode. So until next time, I really invite you to go forth and find ways that you can practice on purpose, ways to find a better way to practice law so that you can rekindle your passion and make a difference in the world, negotiating your best life on your terms. Until next time.